Alabama versus South Carolina this weekend in what might be another very intriguing game. Actually, I think is a very intriguing game in the SEC and not the country. Everybody's going to keep their eyes on this one, whether they want to admit it or not, whether they want to tell you that they are or not, because obviously Alabama is coming off a loss against South Carolina. Bama fans have kind of been non-existent or not around on social media. I follow you a lot on Twitter, but it was a very embarrassing loss last week for Alabama. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. You got to flush it. I know you don't want to. I know that you're out for the head of Kane Womack, your DC. I heard some of you on Feinbaum wanting Pete Golding back. The ironic nature of that is even just so funny. And I know Pete. I like Pete. Pete's a very good guy from the same hometown as I am. But I think you're going to bounce back. Look, South Carolina can produce and give you some very interesting situations. They are pretty good defensively. Look, they're 22nd in the country in total defense. And I think that their defense, more than any other SEC team, is very, very underrated. Their defensive line is really good. Their linebacker play has been really good. Their secondary, especially at safety, guys, has been fantastic. They can present you problems. The issue for a team like South Carolina, who's now going on the road for the first time in the SEC, they're not good on offense. So if your defense has been struggling, which we saw in the last 6 quarters, and it's been a lot what if you are talking about, because they're not a good football team on offense. They're 121st in the country in total offense. They're 121st on third down efficiency. They're 93rd in the country in total offense. Outside Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford running the football, guys, they don't necessarily have a pulse at throwing the football. They didn't do that against Kentucky. They couldn't necessarily completely do that against LSU. What could they do? They could run the football, and if you weren't assignment correct, they're going to run all over you and play good defense. They're going to be good on special teams. You have no business being remotely close in this game. Now, do I think that they can bring up some challenges for you? Yeah, actually, I do. I 100% think that they issue some challenges, especially from the defense that you showed last week. Now, I know what Bama fans are going to say. Blake, how are you saying all of this after we just got beat by Vandy? Here's the common misconception about this Vandy team that nobody wants to talk about. It's not the Vandy that we grew up with, man. It just isn't. Clark Lee is a really good coach. Barton Simmons is a really good evaluator of talent. I know you got pushed around up front last week. I know that Vandy was 12 of 18 on third down against you last week. I just think that you're still a really good football team. Now, you might not want to hear that. You might say, oh, this dude's just blowing smoke up our arse. No, I'm not. I still think that you're a really good football team. You had a bad game after an emotional win against Georgia, and you got caught slipping. You didn't make in-game adjustments, and you got picked apart and out-schemed and out-coached. And that's the thing that I think that they're going to fix under Kalen DeBoer. I think you're not going to get out-coached this week. Shane Beamer's not a good X's and O's guy. You're not going to get out-coached. You're not going to get out-schemed. Then you're going to find a way to be who you are, and that is Alabama. In reference to South Carolina, listen, man, I love your defense. I love your front seven. I love your linebacker play. I love your defensive line play. I think both of your safeties have been fantastic. I think you've done more than what anybody expected you to do and be defensively. You have arguably one of the best pairs of edge rushers in the country, especially you do in the SEC, and people aren't going to talk about it because you're 3-2. Man, you're just not you're not good on offense. Your offensive line is 133rd in the country in pass pro. You're giving up too many pressures. Your inability at times to run the football has been very bad. Lenore Sellers has made either really good decisions or really bad. It hasn't been like even close to being medium, right? Like, I mean, he's either making really good plays, making really bad plays. He's been a turnover prone, and you've been turnover prone at quarterback. I mean, look, man, he had a fumbled ball against Kentucky on a strip sack. He had one against LSU. He had an interception against LSU. You can't do that. And really and truthfully, it's been why your offense has not been able to be consistent. You've been consistently inconsistent offensively. Like I mentioned, you're 121st on third down rate. Guys, you can't stay on the field. I don't know what you're ultimately trying to accomplish on offense. Really, I don't. And this is not the team after they're coming off a very embarrassing loss to Vandy that you need to try to find some things. Now, I think you can find who you are, even in a loss. I think you can go out there and try to make this one a game. But you're going to have to win the turnover battle. You're going to have to play keep away from Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams and do exactly what Vandy did. Guys, the God's honest truth is that you have to do exactly what Vandy did a week ago and out-coach him and out-scheme him. I don't think that Shane Beamer's a better coach than Clark Lee. I don't think he's an X's and O's guy like that. I think he goes based off a lot of emotion. He doesn't have the staff like that, and I think it's going to wind up backfiring you against this week. Backfiring against you this week. I think your defense can keep you in this game. They got a lot of really good playmakers. But I do think that they're going to get, meaning Bama, I think Bama's going to get Ryan Williams the football a lot this week. They were unable to get him the ball a lot last week. He had 4 total touches, which is not good enough. If Bama would have beat Vandy, I would say maybe you could go out there and keep this game pretty close early. But because they lost last week, man, I don't want to come out here and say that it's going to be a blowout or a splattering, as a guy that we had on a couple of weeks ago on our national show, Josh Pate, would say. But man. I think this one's going to be tough for you. I'm going to take Alabama to win. I'm going to take Alabama to cover. I think they're going to get back right. I think Kalen DeBoer is just such a really good coach. I think Kane Womack's a good coach too. And regardless of what we say about him, regardless of what we think about the win or the loss, of last week for Alabama, I think they're going to go out there and dominate. You don't. That D-line is going to be able to feast against this South Carolina offensive line, and that's going to be your downfall. So give me Alabama to win. Give me Alabama to cover. It's going to be very interesting to see.